So hey everybody, welcome back to Bow and Arrow Garage. So today I want to continue working on the C3 Corvette. In the last video I got all the computer wired in, got the fuel pump relay working, got the diagnostic port communicating with the computer, and so I'm really anxious to jump into the tune on this car. And I tried to get to it last weekend, but I ran into some complications on my wife's truck and had to deal with the dealership and didn't get around to it. But I did work on the car a little bit on Sunday. It's very rare for me to work on Sundays, but a buddy of mine was going to help me weld up the exhaust pipes. So he came over and we were able to at least start working on it. But we had some issues getting the heat right and everything on it. So anyways, he's got the exhaust right now and he's kind of working on at least getting to the point where I have a down pipe where I can hook up my O2 sensors. So kind of waiting on that, but I figured in the meantime I'd go ahead and jump in and start at least trying to look at the tune, see where we're at, and hopefully by the time we get the exhaust pipes in that I can go ahead and download the tune to the car and get this thing cranked over. So that's the goal today. It's not going to get started today unfortunately, but we're going to start moving toward that end goal. So with that being said, I'm going to jump into it and we'll go from there.
Okay guys, I kind of wanted to do a little bit different video tonight. It's going to be basically how to convert injector data from an LS Gen 4 format into an LS Gen 3 format. Basically the Gen 3 formats were simpler and the injectors used a different scale, and so when they changed to Gen 4 it got a little more complicated. And the reason I need to do this is because I purchased a Trailblazer SS, what most people call them, manifold, and it came with this part number injector, a 12594512. And when I googled the injectors, it came out that they came out of an 07 Avalanche, or a couple of different vehicles, but that was the first one that popped up. And when you go to the 07 Avalanche, it's a Gen 4 configuration. And we'll get more into what that means here in a minute in the tables, but you can see I have a bunch of numbers here, pounds per hour, flow rate, kPa, which is your manifold vacuum. Same thing, this upper row is the Gen 3 data, the lower row is the Gen 4 data, and I came across a forum that basically said if you will look at a 2006 Trailblazer SS versus a 2007 Trailblazer SS, you can kind of gather the correlation between the two scales. And the reason being is, and I'll go ahead and open up the tune files. This is the tune file for a 2006 Trailblazer SS. And if you go to the edit button here and you look at calibration details, you'll see that it's an E40 ECM and GM Generation 4 V8. We'll go ahead and pop up the 2007 Trailblazer SS, which is here. Edit calibration details. It's an E67 ECM Gen 4, GM Gen 4. But what's going to help us out here is if you go to the engine, close that out, in the fuel tabs, in your flow rate versus your pressure, you can see that they use flow rate, and I have it selected in pounds per hour. You can change this to all kinds of different things, but I like pounds per hour. But it's got this measurement of a pressure delta. And when you look at the 2006 engine, you can see that it's manifold vacuum kPa, and flow rate again in pounds per hour. So what I'm going to show you what I did. I don't want you to have to bear through all of it, but I hit copy with axis and I go to my notepad here, and I'm going to do it on another line. And copy and paste. And so let me tab over here real quick. And so basically what I did is this is this upper row here and I just went through and I took out all these decimal places and I brought it down to 1. And so you can see that basically your manifold pressure of 0, your flow rate should be 29.4. And so so here we are. Like I said, basically I just went in and I took all, oops, and that's why it just, and so you can see now 0 lines up with 29.4, and I did that with all those parameters. But then I went and did the same thing in the 2007 under the pressure delta, and you can see how much more information the computer sees when they went to the newer standard. So I'm going to go ahead and I'm going to erase this. I just wanted to show you that. So what we want to do then is now we want to look at your flow rate, and we want to find a correlation between these two tables. So you notice here we have at a 0 kPa we have a flow rate of 29.4 pounds per hour. So if we go on this bottom line and we find 29.4, we can see that it's a pressure delta of 400. So I'm going to go ahead and put that in here, 0, 400, and it's 29.4, 20.4. So if we go over to our next column, our 5 kPa manifold pressure, we have a flow rate of 29.6. And if we go through here, we have 29.0, 29.4, and then 29.9. So we don't find that exact value. Going to 29.7, once again, we don't find the exact value. And then in 15 we have 29.9, and lo and behold, here it is. At 416 we have 29.9. So I'll put 15, and that was 416, and it is 29.9. It's 464, and is 31.8. And the final one is going to be over here at 80. It's 32.4. See, we have 32.4 is at 480. And it's 32.4. Oh man. 2.4. So if we look at that correlation, what we basically find is that within these, when you're going from a pressure delta to a kPa, that these columns basically are the ones that you can look at and go, okay, we've got a correlation here. So we could go plug in our numbers from our Gen 4 pressure delta data into the Gen 3 data that uses the kPa in those certain columns, and then we can just interpolate in between. So let me show you in practice what that looks like. So here we go. So let me open up. So we said that these injectors came off an 07 Avalanche. So what we want to do then, and we can see that that is an E38 ECM GM Gen 4 V8. And we'll see here that in the fueling tab it uses the pressure delta. So what we want to do is we want to just take the numbers out of those certain columns. So So out of our 416 column, it's going to be 37.0. I'm sorry, out of my 400 column, I don't have it. I missed this one over here. My 400 column is going to be 36.4. In my 416 column, it's going to be 37. 37.0. 416. In my 432 column, we're going to get 37.7. Out of my 448 column, 448, I'm going to have 38.3. 38.3. Out of my, and I'm going to back these up a little bit. Just because it's my OCD's kicking in here. Out of my 464 column, I'm going to get 38.9. And then out of my final column, it's going to be 480. I'm going to get 39.3. 39.3. And once again, we'll back that up. And that's out of my 480 column. So I hope you saw what I did there. This is my 07 Avalanche, the vehicle that the Injectors came out of. And out of those columns, let's see here. Get that away from the. Give me a second to get everything lined up as it should be. Just so it makes it easier to see. All right. So remember now, the 400 column correlates to 0, the 416 to 15, the 432 to 30, 448 to 440, to 45, 464 to 65, and 480 to 80. So now let's go to our tune that we're actually working on, which is our C3 Corvette. I'm going to delete this one. That's just a copy. Yes, this is my, let me do something real quick. This is my as found tune that I downloaded from my, and I shouldn't have opened it. Actually, I want to make a copy of it. And let's call it test 1. Oops. All right, so I'm going to open that one up. And now I wanted to show you the controller on this. This is a P01 ECM. It's a GM Gen 3 V8 or a 4.3 liter V6. Obviously we have the V8 here, but so let's close that. Let's open up my flow rate versus KPA, and we want to minimize it. So then let's bring up this guy here. And so what we're going to do is in our 0 column, which from our Gen 4, from our 07 Avalanche was the 400, we're going to put 36.4. So I'm going to go ahead, first of all, I'm going to zero all these out, just so it doesn't get confusing. So that's 36.4. And there may be easier ways to input this data into the things, but this is the way I do it. So let's go. We'll leave it just right there. That way we know we're working on this column. Actually, I want to see the numbers. So that was 0. So in 15, we're going to put, and that should be at 37. And that's what you've got to be very, very careful of, that you don't fat finger stuff, because it's very easy to do. 37.0, not O, but 0 equals. All right. And then in my 30 column, we're going to put 37.7. And 30. In 45, we're going to put 38.3. In 65, we're going to put 38.9. And then in 80, we're going to put 39.3. And equals. All right. So now we've got those 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6 parameters that we pulled from the 07 Avalanche. And what we want to do now is we want to interpolate through just from number to number. If you do it all the way across, it could change these, and I want these numbers to stay correct. So I'm going to interpolate the selection. You can see now I don't have zeros there. So I'm going to click on that one, and I'm going to interpolate again. Click here to here, interpolate, there, interpolate, and in there, and interpolate. And so what I like to do is go back and check my numbers. And so I want to check at 0, I should have 36.4. At 15, I have 37.0. At 30, I have 37.7. At 45, I have 38.3. At 65, I have 38.9. And at 80, I have 39.3. So I do. So now, so we have done that table, and basically, let me save this. And so let's look at this. Let's look at this now. So if you go in here and you read down here, it says that it is, sorry, moved on me, your injector flow rate versus your kPa vacuum. This value is the injector flow rate. It is used to tell the VCM the size of the injectors and also how flow rate varies with manifold vacuum. So in other words, varying pressure characteristics. So that table is done. And so now if you want to, we can open up a compare file, and we can open up the as found, and you can see now, it shows that it's changed. So you can look at it in that table, you can look at it in that table, and then you can look at the percent, the change that's taken place, and it basically just changed your flow rate by about 10 pounds per hour, which is quite a bit. So let's take a look now. I'm going to go ahead and close that compare file. And so I wanted to point out one thing here is, if you notice at your manifold vacuum, basically at 0, you're flowing 36.4. and these injectors are rated at 36 pounds an hour. If you look at a manifold vacuum of 80, then it shows 39.3. It's actually flowing more. And what that means is that this would be a higher throttle position where the manifold vacuum is very low and it's just a computer commanding the injector open, and it's basically just spraying what it's supposed to spray. But at a higher vacuum setting at low idle, when the engine is just idling and the throttle plate's closed and you have a higher vacuum, it's actually going to assist in sucking the fuel out of the injector, so you're going to get a little bit more flow rate out of it. So that's why it's higher at a higher manifold vacuum. So anyways, so that table is done. Now we can look at subsequent tables. So let's look at our flow rate multiplier. That is 1, and basically it's a multiplier, so you times any number by 1 and it's itself. So in both, I'm not going to show it, but even in the Avalanche it's 1. So minimum injector pulse. So if you notice, we have a 1.277, and then default injector pulse is 1.277. So let's go ahead and go look at our Avalanche, which should be, I'm going to close these Trailblazers out because I don't need them anymore. They were just to kind of give us a correlation between the two different fields. This should be our Avalanche. That's our, there it is. Okay. So if we look at, we'll close that out, and we look at our minimum injector pulse on this. Notice that it's 0.5, and then also notice that we don't have a default injector pulse rate. So what we want to do is, in this case, we just want to copy, and then we want to go back into our C3 Corvette, and we want to paste. And notice it changes it to 0.502. That is perfectly fine. And you know what? It didn't catch these last four for whatever reason. You got to be very careful of that. So there's our minimum injector pulse rate. But remember also in the C3 that the default injector pulse rate was the same. And I'm sorry, that was the default, but we're going to set them both the same. So paste, and for whatever reason it did the same thing. Just make sure. Alright, so our minimum injector pulse rate and our default injector pulse rate is the same now. So I wanted to show you this in graph form. Notice on our flow rate, notice it's just basically almost a straight line increasing. Now watch this in the Avalanche. It looks kind of different, right? But then when you really think about it, remember we were just in this range between 400 and 480, so it actually is just about the same. It's just compressed because it's in that huge on the huge scale, whereas the other one is spread out more. So, but graphically they look about the same. If you were to spread this out in this whole scale, it would look exactly the same. So these are very good things to use when you want to when you go in and you want to basically take a look at after you tune and make sure that the graph is the same. So anyways, with that being said, we're going to jump right into what is the most difficult thing to tune on this thing, and that's offset versus pressure versus ignition. And look how huge that thing is. Now remember, we just did one little line on the flow rate and it took us a long time. So here, man, this is just huge. And I'm not going to do all of this. I'm going to kind of give you an idea of what you need to do, and then kind of let you go from there. But remember, the only columns that we're interested in are the 400 to the 480. So what we want to do is we want to come all the way across, and we want to copy. And then we're going to go into the Corvette tune, and we're going to go in our engine, our fuel tab, and they do change it a little bit, but here we are. Remember, we can't just go in and paste it because of a couple of reasons. First of all, remember, the columns that we use correlate to 0, 15, 30, 45, 65, and 80. But notice another thing on this is that the Gen 3 uses half volt increments, whereas if you go into the Avalanche, it uses 1 volt increments. So we're going to have to go through and we're going to change that. So watch what I do. This is a nightmare, and you've got to be very vigilant and watch what you're doing. But at the end of the day, if you don't have injector data, and you can't find someone with a spreadsheet online, which I could not, then you have to go in and do this. So let's get all these columns straightened out first of all. All right, so and I'm going to enlarge this just a very, enlarge just a little bit, and then I'm going to go down here. Remember, this is 0, 10, 15, 30, 45, 65, and 80. So notice here in our first two columns we have the same number. Now I'm going to copy that, but I want to make sure you understand that this is our Avalanche. That first number came from 400. It's 4 volts. But watch when we go to our Corvette, it doesn't go down to 4 volts. So then we go to 5 volts, cross from 5 over to 400, and it is 5.1094. But notice also it's in 6. So we're going to go ahead and start filling out our columns here. Alright, but first of all, we're going to clear all of this out. And wow, look at that. So remember, now we're going to paste our number in there, and here. But remember, it was also in 6. Alright, so what this is telling us is that at 400 kPa pressure delta, that number is not going to change from 6 volts and below. So we can go ahead and plug that number in then to our other two. And what we can do is just there, and then we can interpolate. So that number is all the same in 0, all the way up to 6 volts. I hope that makes sense. It can get very confusing, but so now if we go over, remember 5 volts, 416, we can copy that, right? Go over, and so once again it's 6, and below it's that same number. So that's in the column 15. Oops. And notice it changes it just a little bit. That's perfectly fine. And so let's interpolate. So now I want to show you guys one thing. We're not going to do this whole thing together. I mean, it would take forever. But let's look at one thing here. So at 7 volts in our 400 column, our number is that. Copy. Now you're probably just paste it in there. Yep. And so check this out. I'm going to do one more, and you just got to really just, so in our 416 column, copy. Oops, and I put in the wrong one. Now I've got to go back and redo the other one because I messed it up. Nope. Alright, so hopefully y'all can see that. I know it's a lot of blue and stuff, but now what you want to do is you want to interpolate between those columns. And that's how you would fill in your half volts. Same thing here again. And oops. And interpolate between those columns. Then what you would basically end up doing is you're going to fill out all your vertical columns with that same process. We're going to fill out 0, 15, 30, 45, 65, and 80 vertically. And then once you've done that, you can come across and you could go all the way across, and then you can interpolate that whole horizontal section. And so basically at the end of the day, let me show you. I'm going to open up a compare file here. Open compare file. There we go. I went in and did that whole thing all the way across to populate this entire thing. So, and it took me a very, very long time to do it. So anyways, so like I said, I'm not gonna drag you guys through that. I just wanted to kind of show you the process, and then we'll go from there. So then the last thing that we need to do in our fueling table is our short pulse adder. And the only thing I'm going to show you on this is just be very, very careful when you do your short pulse adder, because the first time I did it, when I went and looked at my graph, it was just totally messed up. Totally messed up. And I was trying to figure out what was going on with it. But what I ended up doing, let me show you first of all the avalanche, because that's my source. and then we'll go from there. So short pulse adder. Okay, so I was taking these numbers and plugging them in. Now you notice we have a 0.6 here. When I went into the Corvette file, it's the wrong one. When I went into the Corvette file, and again, there it is. You notice you have a 0.06. Do not put the 0.6 information in the 0.06 column. It goes in the 0.61 column over here. So what I want to do then is now I want to minimize this, and I want to show you my change that I have actually done. Like I said, I went through all this before. I'm just trying to help someone else out. So let's see here on our short pulse adder. Now I want to show you my graphical example of the short pulse, and I want to do it in large screen. Notice what it looks like. Notice it comes up. It's about not quite halfway between 0.1 and 0.2 milliseconds, and it's not quite to 3/4 over here. So watch now what I just wanted to point out. It comes down and then it kind of flatlines and steps over, and then it comes down again. This is my Corvette, and then I'll show you the Avalanche. It's almost exactly the same, except for here it doesn't step straight across. It kind of gradually comes down and then it comes down. So it's almost exactly the same, and that's why you want to really look at these graphs. Okay, this is the Avalanche. This is my source, and you see this is the Avalanche. So you notice that step, and then everything's just got that gradual, looks like a skater's ramp kind of, just with this little stuff. Now let's look at the C3, and go back to my engine, and let's look at our graph. And it's almost exactly the same, except for at these extreme limits from the Avalanche, you had that big step here, but everything else looks just about perfect, and that's what you want to see. You want to see a nice smooth contour. Let's go back to my test. If you go in there and you see something like this, and you look at your graph, that is not what you want to see. But that's because I just populated a portion of that table. So anyways, with that being said, guys, I want to show you one other thing. Close this test out. So in the C3, if you look at this compared to, let's open up the compare file here. My as found C3 Corvette tune, you'll notice you see these green highlighted blocks, and those are all the ones that have been changed, and these are the ones that you really need to change when you're changing from injectors, your injectors, from really any injectors you change. You want to make sure you're looking at these tables. Once again, the Gen 4 didn't have the default injector pulse, but we know from looking at the original tune that it was the same as the minimum injector pulse. So anyways, you see those changes. So that's pretty much it for the injectors. I'm gonna go ahead, I'm waiting on a couple of parts for the car, but I'm getting ready to start this thing. So my exhaust, at least in a usable fashion, should be back to me here by Monday, I think. So hopefully Tuesday I can crank this thing up. I'm gonna try to get this video out in the next 48 hours or so, and then hopefully right after that you'll get another video seeing me upload this tune and getting this thing rolled outside and get it started. So anyways, with that being said, I'm gonna go ahead and shut it down, and we'll see if we can get this video edited. Okay guys, that's gonna be it for this video. You know, I wanted to say a couple of things. First of all, when I originally started off with the 06 and 07 Trailblazer SS tunes, that was only to find that correlation between our tables on the two different tunes. So
You want to make sure not to plug any of the information in from those tunes unless that is the specific injectors you're using. But like I said, once again, that was just to find a correlation. And I want to say, I know a lot of you might find this video very boring. It's one of those things, it was a little bit longer than I wanted it to be, but I tried to cover the topic thoroughly because a lot of people out there are using different manifolds, different injectors. And I've even heard that there are some tuners out there that will refuse to do a tune on your vehicle unless you have the injector data that they can just plug and play, because it takes a while to sit down and go through this manually. So anyways, I wanted to do this. Like I said, it took me a considerable amount of time to kind of go through and research and to figure out how to do this myself. And I wanted to put the information out there kind of in a visual format. So for those of you that are visual learners like myself, that it would kind of maybe help you. And I know the screen size is a little bit small on some of it. You can't necessarily read the numbers and different things. But if you'll go through and kind of watch the video, I think it'll help you to go step by step and figure out how to do this yourself. So there is one caveat on the later Gen 4s. The numbers won't be from 400 to 480. From what I understand, they'll be like from 416 up a little bit higher. I do not have Gen 4, later Gen 4 injectors, so I didn't really look into that myself. But this process should apply once again. So anyways, hopefully if you're doing a conversion like this, you can go online and you can find a spreadsheet with all the numbers you need. But if you can't, this should help you. And anyways, that was my purpose in doing this video. So I hope you guys find it useful. But anyways, I want to say thank you again for watching the video. Hope you enjoyed it. And if you did, please make sure to hit that like button. Consider subscribing to the channel, and we hope to see you again next time. Thanks and have a great day.